It's a new year and Summoner's War is approaching its 10th anniversary. In fact, the first event to commemorate that is live in-game right now. You can get a Nat 5 of water, wind, or fire attribute just by logging in. So to help you choose which one of the 10 to take home, I'm giving you the top 10 Nat 5s for new players. And like the title implies, I'm ranking these monsters from the perspective of a new player tackling their Summoner's War journey. So without further ado, let's get into it. Number 10, it's Nora, the Fire Totemist. She is Strip and Dot all in one unit. It's very rare that you get to see the Facilitator and the Payoff in the same set of skills, so for that, she makes it on the list. She also applies dots whenever she attacks or is attacked, and that is a level of flexibility that is just so admirable. Let me tell you the things I could do if I was that flexible.
Sometimes you wear stretchy pants. It's for fun.
Number 9 is Poseidon. For very similar reasons that he's appeared on other lists like this one. He has a 33% attack power lead, AoE attack bar reduction on skill 3 that doesn't glance, and his skill 2 applies a silence effect on everybody, making it so that they can't use skills with a cooldown. So unless you're a totemist, watch out. Poseidon pairs really well with Tiana and Galleon in siege offenses. He can also be used in arena offenses too. He's also seen use in early Dragon's team to help reduce the tower's attack bar down to 0 before it can apply immunity to the boss. Moving right along at number 8, it's Wusa the Water Pioneer, who applies 3 freaking turns of immunity and shield. He also has true damage on skill 2 and probably the most infuriating skill 1 in the entire game. I swear, getting hit with a clutch little 2-turn sleep in RTA is sometimes just the worst feeling, and it always happens when you're behind. You notice that? You never get hit with a Wusa skill 1 when you're winning. It just feels like a kick in the Wusa is incredible in PvP environments just because of how difficult it can be to navigate 3 turns of immunity, especially if you're in the middle of an RTA draft and you find someone who didn't really bring a lot of strip options. There are many times where you can just win by picking Wusa in those situations. But this list is predominantly new player focused, and if you're bringing him into PvE environments, he can tend to be a little bit of a crutch. Even though he can kind of cheese you through some of the early game content, you might end up accidentally over-relying on Wusa's safety, thereby stunting your progress a little bit. He's amazing, but he's number 8. Meanwhile, at 7, Ganymede, the Wind Fairy King. The word irresistible appears so infrequently in Summoner's War that it's worth highlighting here. On his skill 3, he ignores resistance and puts someone on full cooldown time. But then he does have an accuracy resistance check at the end where he tries to reduce attack bars all the way down to 0. He dominated PvP back in the day, and he still sees use in RTA. Though, he is also an all-star in our other favorite initialism, TOA, Trial of Ascension. And TOA is of the utmost importance for new players because it's a really consistent way to get great rewards every single month. So, AoE attack bar reduction and making sure that your enemies can't use their skills, both of those things are super valuable. So Ganymede is on the list. Plus, he transitions well into other areas of the game. I haven't even talked about Ventilate yet. And I won't! Look at that. Just moving right along. Number 6 is Laika, the Fire Dragon Knight. I still don't have him. I swear, I talk about Laika almost every single week, and I still haven't summoned one. So I'm kind of living vicariously through people who have him.
I'm gonna get you out of here!
So with that in mind, I'll tell you that if I were to own a Laika, I would bring him in things like Giant's Abyss. If you're having a hard time clearing giants, you can just throw a Laika in and it'll get you a win. It's not gonna be fast, but it will clear. Laika is slightly higher on this list than he has been in the past because he also has new uses in things like the Dimensional Raid. Because Justice ignores damage reduction effects, and that is exactly what the boss asks you to bring in Phase 3. As a quick reminder, Laika's passive says that you can't get rid of him in one shot. Instead, it takes a minimum of 5. And he can't glance. That's why you can bring him to Giants. Also a very classic 1v1 champion in RTA. We're looking at another fire monster at the number 5 slot. It's Brandia, the Fire Polar Queen. This monster deals so much freaking damage. So if you're looking for a damage dealer to throw into your Rift teams, or if you're trying to clear Steel Fortress Abyss, or maybe even something else, she's great for that. She's got built-in attack bar cycling on her skill 2 that can also reduce the amount of damage that your team takes from your opponents. But her skill 3 is so much fun to read. You gotta check this thing out. It stacks on so much damage for beneficial effects, harmful effects, for if they're resistant to sleep. It's got everything. And you can't sleep bosses. That's why it deals so much damage. So congratulations, Brandia, you got number 5. Number 4 is Chung Pung. I love talking about Chungpung because so many people relegate him to RTA because he's incredible in PvP, but folks often forget that he has so much use in PvE spaces as well. For the same reasons that you'd bring attack bar reduction or also increase cooldown time effects in TOA, you could bring Chungpung to do the same thing. He also has defense break on skill 2. So I'm hearing damage facilitation and also anti-clapback on one monster. Another example of somebody who is the setup and the payoff. Number 3, potentially the first time I've ever talked about this monster on the channel, Teshar, the Wind Phoenix. Teshar's gotten a lot of attention recently, especially because of that 33% crit rate leader skill in dungeons. A lot of times when you're trying to build teams for Abyss dungeons, you need to focus on crit damage for your heavy damage dealers. And so something's got to give. And if you can reduce the amount of crit rate you need to put on your monsters, then that is a huge blessing. Now, Teshar gives you that flexibility, but also adds to your damage total. Has a really interesting passive that allows him to attack a second time, and that second attack is an AoE. And if you happen to take out any monsters with that attack, the cooldown time is refreshed. So you'll find that you're chaining together takedowns and clearing waves way faster with Teshar. Next, number 2, in a huge shakeup, Varad the Water Dragon. Varad is absolutely a contender for that number 1 slot, especially when you're looking at these monsters in a new player perspective. So if you have him in your first place slot, I completely understand. The reason he is so far in the list is because he has AoE attack bar reduction and freeze on skill 3. He has another freeze on skill 2, and he's got damage on skill 1. All this together makes him just a crowd control king. You can also transition him into some control cleave comps for RTA, but the reason why I'm recommending him is because of just how well he does in places like Trial of Ascension and Hall of Heroes. It's kind of why I tell everyone during a Fuse News to set Varad as your rep monster during Hall of Heroes times if you've got one. Before I reveal who number 1 is, I want to talk about an honorable mention. Charlotte, the Wind Occult Girl, who's gotten a lot of attention on the channel already recently, so I won't linger for too long on her. But she has a great kit. Her skill 3 in particular has AoE attack bar reduction, and she boosts your team's attack bar at the same time. Plus, she's got stun on skill 2 as if that wasn't enough. So if you're noticing a trend of attack bar reduction being good, that's very much intentional. It's stellar, especially for new players when you're trying to control huge quantities of monsters. If I was to place her somewhere on the list, I would probably put her either tied with Chungpung or maybe even tied with Varad. It's honestly a little bit tough. Because if you're keeping the enemies from getting a turn, it's almost like you're increasing their cooldown times. Yeah, but you know what? That's just me. It's just me talking. It's not science. Number 1, it's Rika, the Fire Occult Girl. Rika can be used in Siege, Trial of Ascension. She can even get you a win if she's the last pick in RTA and you see that your opponents don't have any immunity. She's just an all-around solid monster that can bring a ton of damage and crowd control, especially because she can slow your opponents and stun them. And if you're still new to the game, even though we can't dot the Abyss dungeon bosses to death anymore, you can still farm artifacts by hanging out in SF10 and getting some easy dot clears with Rika plus Saf. So there we go. That's the top 10 Nat 5s for new players. Does my list look like yours? Let me know in a comment down below what you would add or what you end up taking once the event is over. That's it for the video. See y'all later.